Hey there YouTube. So in this video I wanted to cover a very common question I get from my non-US clients is, can I buy US real estate? And the answer quite simply is yes, you absolutely can. The United States really has no restrictions on who can buy US real property. This is in contrast to some other countries that have some restrictions on who can buy property, what amounts. For example, I lived in Bermuda for a couple of years. Bermuda is one of those countries where if you are a non-Bermudian citizen, you can't buy property in the country unless it meets very unique exceptions. So you have to be an expat that has a work permit there. The property value has to be over a certain amount. So it's quite difficult to get property in certain countries. The US is not one of those. If you're a foreigner and you want to buy property in the US, generally there's no issue whatsoever, right? There's no income limitations, there's no pricing limitations. You can buy the property. Now, if you need to finance the property, that's a different story, right? I mean, if you need to buy a property in the US and get a bank loan for it and you're not a US citizen or resident, that's a little more difficult. But if you're just paying cash, there's really no issue whatsoever. So let's dive into, I got two slides in front of us. This is the first one, then one more after it, just to cover some of the big ticket items that you need to be mindful of if you're going to be buying US real property as a non-resident. So first point, as I noted already, 100% okay to buy property as a non-resident. There's really no issues whatsoever. But the second bullet point there is important. There are certain legal and tax issues that you need to be mindful of before you jump into this, because there could be some pretty severe tax or legal consequences if you're not doing it correctly. So first issues, let's cover the legal stuff. First question to ask is always, what's your intended use of the property, right? Are you buying this because you want to rent it out to tenants? Are you going to Airbnb it? Do you not want to rent it out at all? Is it just going to be a vacation home, so you're there a week of the year? Or are you going to buy it and like try to move to the US and live there, maybe live there substantially 3-4 months out of the year? These are all issues you consider. If you're going to buy the property and rent it, you want to probably go down the route at a minimum of setting up an LLC or some other type of entity to hold the property because of the legal liability protections that are afforded with an entity, right? If you hold the property personally and there's a lawsuit or something, you could be held personally responsible for it, whereas at least the LLC kind of contains everything within that structure. If you're just using it as a personal residence, then maybe legal issues aren't so much of a concern for you. You don't have to buy it through an entity. But when we get to the tax section, you'll see why, even if you're using it for personal purposes, the entity route might be best for you, okay? So let's move into the tax issues, because these are the really, really important ones that I think people are just not aware about. So first issue is a non-US resident is potentially subject to US tax in one of two ways, right? So the first one is, if you're invested in US property, you're subject to maybe US FDAP withholding tax. So FDAP is fixed, determinable, annual, or periodical income. This is income from US sources that's subject to withholding tax at source, right? So big ones are US dividends, interest, rents, royalties. If you're a non-resident and you have these types of income sources, the person paying you the income is required to withhold tax at source and give you the difference, right? So that's one way non-residents are subject to tax on US source income. The second one is US source income that's effectively connected with a US trade or business. If you're a non-resident and you're investing in a US trade or business and you have that ECI, you're subject to federal income taxes on that income at graduated rates, right? It's just like being a US citizen or a US tax resident. So you could have to file a Form 1040-NR, or if you're conducting that business through a foreign corporation, you might need a Form 1120-F. But the point here is that if you're generating that US source ECI, you're going to be subject to federal income taxes. Now here's where real estate gets a little tricky. If you're invested in US real estate and you earn rental property income from that real estate, or you just go ahead and sell it, that is treated as US source income and it's treated as effectively connected income, right? So if you buy US real estate, under the code, you're already kind of deemed to be engaged in US trade or business. You have that US source income. And so this is where we get into what created the FIRPTA withholding issues that we're going to talk about next. So FIRPTA, Foreign Investment in Real Property Act, is a method by which U.S. custodians have to withhold tax on sales of property that are owned by foreign persons, right? So if you're a non-U.S. person and you hold U.S. real estate and sell it, the buyer in this case, or the broker that's effectuating the transaction, usually that might be the title company or a lawyer, law firm, they've got to withhold 15% tax on the gross proceeds from those sales. Now, think about this. 15% is on the gross sale price. There's no consideration for what your actual gain was on the property. If you bought a property for $998,000 and you sold it for $1 million, your gain is only $2,000, right? That's your gain. But under the FIRPTA regs, the broker has to withhold 15% on $1 million, right? So what's that? 15% times $1 million is $150,000 in tax on a $2,000 gain. This is why holding property as a non-resident can be so detrimental, because you have massive withholding taxes withheld at source and very often well exceed whatever your gain might be on the disposition. Now, there are certain things you do to get around this. There's 8288Bs. You can apply for certain withholding exemption with the IRS. Not exactly an easy process, but I'll talk about that on the next slide. The point is, holding property as a foreign person in the U.S. is all great until you actually go to sell it, and then you're hit with these kind of issues. The second piece at the bottom here is estate taxes. Now, for those who are U.S. citizens or are aware of this estate tax, basically if your net worth is over a certain amount when you die, the federal government can tax you based on your net worth. Now, there's an exemption that's quite high. It's a little over $11 million in 2021. So if your net worth is under that amount, you really don't have to worry about this. Here's where non-residents really take a bath. The non-resident estate tax exemption is only $60,000 on U.S. situs assets. Okay, $60,000, that's it. So if you had that same $1 million property that you were holding personally when you died, you would take the $1 million minus the $60,000 exemption, and then that difference, the $940, is subject to tax. It's subject to the U.S. estate tax, because non-residents, again, their estate tax exemption is incredibly low when you compare it to what U.S. citizens have. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide and we'll get into some more details and some examples here. Okay, so the FIRPTA and U.S. estate tax issues. So FIRPTA, like I said, under IRC 1445A, U.S. real property interest sold by a non-U.S. person, the buyer or the transferee, whoever the custodian is, has to withhold 15% on the gross amount. So in this example, we have Hans is a German citizen. He buys a home in Florida, Orlando, $500,000 in 2015. He uses the property as a vacation home for only 2 weeks a year. That's important because what we're trying to highlight there is that Hans is not a U.S. tax resident. He's a non-resident that's only in the U.S. for 2 weeks a year, so he's not subject to tax on his worldwide income. But for FIRPTA and estate tax issues, that doesn't matter. So in 2020, he sells the property for $550,000, right? So his gain is $50,000. Now under 1445A, the broker withholds 15% on the $550,000, right? So that's $550,000 times 15 is $82,500, so $82,500 in taxes. Already you can see the $82,500 well exceeds not only his gain of $50,000, but whatever tax he might owe on the gain. Okay, but those are the rules, right? These are the FIRPTA regs, and they're in place because the IRS wants to make sure that they get their fair share of the cut of taxes, right? Now, the taxes by the broker, the custodian, whoever's effectuating the transaction has to withhold. They report this on an 8288. And like I said on the previous side, there is potential where Hans can apply for a withholding exemption or a reduced withholding rate if he submits an 8288B. Now, the problem I have with 8288B is you've got to file this before you sell the property. It takes a while to get it processed. The IRS doesn't do anything fast. And then even after you get the exemption, you've got to provide this to the broker, and you basically have to persuade them to accept it and not withhold all the taxes at source. It's not very clean. I don't like it. Most of the times it's way too cumbersome, and we try at all cases to just avoid this issue altogether. And at the very end, I'll talk about one of the big easy ways you can structure this transaction to avoid FIRPTA withholding altogether. Okay, so now we're moving on from FIRPTA. What about the estate tax issues? So the estate tax, again, so under 2101A, estate taxes are imposed on a non-resident decedent. So decedent means the person that passed away, right? So all of these code sections, you find them between 2108 and 2101 and 2108. And again, the non-residents only have an estate tax exemption of $60,000. That's in contrast to U.S. citizens that have the 11 point, I think it's 658, something like that. It's a very high number for U.S. citizens or U.S. residents, green card holders. But if you're a non-resident invested in U.S. situs property, so that's real estate, U.S. stocks, U.S. bonds, these types of other types of businesses in the U.S., your exemption is only $60,000, okay? So let's look at the example for Hans again. So Hans is a German citizen, buys a home in Florida, $500,000 again, uses the property as a vacation home. Now in 2020, Hans passes away. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter. He passes away, he's no longer living. He has an estate. Okay, the value of the home is $525,000. What happens here? Well, Hans is personal rep, so it's the executor over your estate. It could be a family member, it could be a third party, it could be somebody in the U.S. This individual is tasked with the responsibility of filing an estate tax return for Hans, right? So 706 is the estate tax return filed for U.S. citizens. 706NA is the estate tax return filed for non-residents. So this person needs to file an estate tax return for Hans, report the gross value of his U.S. situs assets, so that's his U.S. real property at $525,000, and then compute and pay the tax. Now again, he only gets a $60,000 exemption. So based on his single filing status, and for the 2020 tax year, his estate tax is computed on the $465,000. Under the current rates, his bill would be $152,050. And that's assuming there's no deductions for estate tax expenses or fees. All that comes into play, but all of that is nominal in my opinion. The big takeaway here is even if you can deduct $10,000 in estate planning legal fees, you're still left with a massive tax bill. Anything above that 60K is going to be taxed heavily. So Hans has a house for $525,000. It has to cut a check. His estate has to cut a check for $150,000 in estate taxes. Now, what are the options here? Well, hopefully Hans has other cash to pay this bill. A lot of times what happens is they're forced to borrow the money to pay the tax, or you got to sell the property to pay the tax. It's not a good position to be in. So again, proper planning has to occur here. So what are some big options? Well, the first thing that I always recommend is consider both pieces at the same time. I get a lot of clients that are 30 years old and are like, well, Jason, I'm going to live until I'm 70, so I'm not worried about the estate tax, barring some absent, weird event where I might cross the street and get hit by a bus. So I don't want to structure it to worry about the estate tax. Let's just deal with FIRPTA, perhaps. That is an okay approach, maybe. I don't recommend it. I would like to set up a structure that considers everything at the same time, because you just never know what's going to happen. So what are a couple things you do? The first thing to avoid the FIRPTA issue is never buy property in your name personally. Always buy it through a U.S. entity, preferably an LLC that's taxed as a C Corp or maybe even a partnership. Now that's the first way to circumvent the FIRPTA issues. Because if you have a U.S. entity that's a regarded entity, so it's a U.S. Corp or a U.S. partnership, and it sells the property, the withholding agent is cutting a check to a U.S. entity. It's no longer cutting a check to you as a foreign person. And so the FIRPTA withholding of 15% doesn't apply anymore. Okay, and so that's the big first issue to kind of get around here is if you buy the property through there and you sell it, you're not having the withholding tax coming off the top. Now, because again, it's U.S. situs real estate, you do have to pay tax on the gain. So you've got to file a tax return, pay taxes on whatever the net gain is, but at least you're not having this massive withholding tax coming off the top on the gross sales proceeds. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, how do you get around this estate tax issue? So the estate tax only applies when a non-resident is holding U.S. situs assets in their name personally. And so what we do to get around this is you go with the U.S. company route that owns the U.S. real property, and this same concept works for U.S. stocks, bonds, other types of investments. And then that U.S. entity itself is not owned by the non-resident personally, it's owned by another foreign corporation. So let's say, for example, you hear Hans sets up a German company, a German GmbH, or it could be a BVI company, Cayman, Bermuda, doesn't matter. He owns 100% of that foreign company, and then that company owns 100% of the LLC units in the US. That's how you get around the estate taxes. Because when Hans passes away, he doesn't have a decedent, he doesn't have an estate in the US because he personally doesn't own any US situs assets. He has used a foreign corporate blocker to prevent him from creating a US taxable estate. This is really important, and this is the planning that's done from the outset to make sure that he's not only just protected legally, and we help kind of avoid some of these FIRPTA issues, but in the event that Hans passes away, he doesn't have a U.S. taxable estate, and frankly, it just makes it easier to administer his estate because Hans can appoint family members to be corporate directors of that foreign entity, or he can appoint a trustee company or whatever. But the idea is, first and foremost, nothing is in his name personally. He doesn't have a U.S. taxable estate, so he's not getting hammered on this $152,000 tax bill for just having a $500,000 property in the U.S. So, so I covered a lot of material there. I hope I, kind of made it simple to understand, just high level. These are simple examples. Obviously, a lot of estates can be more complex than this, but these are the principal issues. If you're a non-resident and you're investing in U.S. real estate, you need to be cognizant of the current federal income tax issues, like if you're renting the property, FIRPTA issues if you sell the property, and then ultimately the estate tax issues if you, in the event of your untimely demise and you pass away holding that property, what does your spouse have to worry about? What do your heirs have to worry about? So your kids, grandkids, whoever's going to inherit these assets, what kind of issues are you creating for them by not having this set up properly from the beginning? So again, thank you so much for watching. I hope all the material was helpful and easy to understand. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below on the video. Happy to help out and answer wherever I can. And of course, my calendar link is in the video as well. Please schedule a consult with me if you have any other kind of questions or unique issues that you need to have a live discussion about. And thank you again so much. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.